Pin. There it is. Perfect. Okay. All right. So, hi, guys. Welcome back. I hope everyone's staying warm right now because I don't know about y'all, but it's cold outside. It's been very, very freezing. So, what we're going to do first is we're going to finish up our time signs. And then before we start our WH question words, we're going to do some signs for different shapes first. We had one of our friends ask how you would sign them, and they're very simple. It's not complicated. So we're going to do those. Then we'll move on to our WH question words and have a few sentences. And hopefully we'll have enough time after that to do family signs. Okay. All right. So if you remember when we were doing our time, we had did day, week, month, year. And then today I was going to explain how you would do next week, next year, last year, things like that. So if you remember when we were talking about today, yesterday, tomorrow, how I said it's like a timeline line. And how when you're talking about anything that's happening in the future, you go forward in this area, while anything that happens in the past is going to go behind you. So we're going to use that same thing when we're talking about week, month, and year. So for next week, there are technically two ways. I'm going to show you the first way and then another way. Because the second one's a little bit weird looking, but I am pretty bad about doing this one. So that's why I always like to show this one as well. But the first one is you're going to have your non-dominant palm up, dominant pointer finger. You're going to do exactly like we do with week. So we're going to slide our pointer finger across, and then you're going to circle it forward. Next week. Next week. It's almost like you're making, if you're looking down at your hand, you're making a C. Next week. Next week. Next week. Yes. The other one is you start on the opposite side, you come across, and then you slide down and out. Next week. Next week. I always recommend start with this one first, just to build that knowledge and understanding with like that kind of pattern. This one I didn't really see until I started working at my school. And what was kind of funny was I had not used that before. I would do next week, next week, next week. And then I had one student who would do next week, next week. Give me a month, I all of a sudden caught myself going next week. And I didn't even realize what I was doing. Like I just suddenly did next week. And actually what's interesting is we'd have this class and I would say next week, next week. And then typically like, right before we go, I say, I'll see you guys all next Tuesday. And I would do next week instead of next week. And I would notice some of the people be like, their faces were like, wait a minute. And I realized I was like, oh, I've been telling everyone next week, and then I go ahead and do this. I'm sure everyone's like, what are you doing? So I always like to add that second one as well to show that I promise I'm not just being a crazy person and telling you a different sign, like, or air quote, wrong sign. It's not the wrong sign. That's just there are two ways. So we have our next week, next week. For last week, you're going to have that palm up again, pointer finger across at the base. You're going to slide it across and then point to the back. Last week. Last week. Last week. Now, the nice thing about this is if you are talking about a few weeks, like multiple weeks, like 2 or 3 weeks, you can just add that number. So 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks, or 3 weeks. You can just kind of add that number to your hand as you slide. Excuse me. Okay. The next one we have is month. Now, I personally do not like doing next month and last month because can be a little bit awkward, to me at least. That maybe it's just a personal thing, but that's just always how I feel. So remember, our month is our pointer fingers. You go down the base of your hand. For next month, oh wait, here. Okay, have 2 pointer fingers pointing out. Dominant turn sideways, and then you brush to the back. Month. So if you were to say next month, you're going to do the exact same thing. You'll slide down and then point out. Next month. When are you talking about when you do week? So Typically you do want to do week with it pointing down like this. If you probably notice, I sometimes will do that. That's a faster motion. So really you want to make sure you're pointing down, but if you do like this way, you kind of will catch yourself not fully going down. And I think that's where it can get a little tricky. But if you're talking about the week, you don't really do pointing up week. It's week down. Okay. I'm just going to leave the chat up. Okay. So for next month, like again, you would have it come down and point out next month, next month, next month. Same thing again, if you're talking about multiple months, 3 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, whichever. You'll slide it and go out. Then for last month, you'll have again the same position. You're going to come here and go back. Last month, last month, last month. The reason I think this one can be a little awkward is if you're not careful about your placement, you can accidentally scratch yourself here if you get too close to your neck. And that does happen. I know that's like a crazy, how can you accidentally scratch yourself? I've done it. I've hit my chin so many times, you guys, like scratched them with my nails. And I'll be like, I'll stand there and I'll like have to hold it and make sure I'm not bleeding. And then I'll be like, oh, okay, we're good. And I go back in the conversation. It is very possible of accidentally hurting yourself while signing. Especially if you're getting really excited or animated, it's easy. Okay. I warn everybody, it's very easy. So I think last month, that's why I'm always like concerned. I'm just going to nick myself with a nail last month. Good. Okay. Then let's do last year and next. Yeah, last year and next year, and then we'll review. Okay. So for last year, there are technically 2 ways you can do it. I'll show you both. You're going to have your fist, instead of doing a year round, you're just going to bounce and put a 1 back. Last year, last year, last year, last year. Now, another way people will do last year is sometimes they'll go like 2 years ago, last year, they just rest it here and bounce it backwards. Last year. And it's not like the 11 when you're flicking up, it's like doing it come here motion. Last year. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that. I see that every now and then. Typically, if you're doing like 13 or 14 years ago, you really don't do 13 years ago. You just do 13 years ago. Kind of separate it. And because I could see, I was like, as I was watching myself sign, I was like, that could easily look like you're saying 13. And typically when you get like the bigger numbers, I at least do 13 years ago, 13 years. For next year, you're going to do the same thing before. Next year, next year, next year. So if you're doing 2 years, you bounce and then flick your 2. 2 years. So, like I said, anything that's happened in the future is going to come towards the front of you. Anything that happens in the past is going to go behind you. That, I think, is a helpful tidbit when you're trying to remember which direction you would go for month, week, years, things like that. So let's go back. We had last week. No, we had next week. That's what we had. Sorry. I'm trying to start in the right process. So we had next week. So we have palm up, slide across, and go forward. Next week. Next week. Or the other way, which is where I had it come across and go down. Next week. Next week. Miss Katie is like, what is this? And it's because I told you, this one, it's like, it's a better like starter process, I always like to say, because this one's just such a weird motion. And it works when you do it later and practice it, but I recommend starting with this one just for now. Next week. Then we had last week. Really? Well, if you prefer the second way, go for it. Like either way, like I said, either way works. It kind of just, sometimes it'll just kind of depend on comfortability, I think, is how you feel. So
I honestly think my problem is the way I learned it first. And now I just can't wrap my mind around. And also because I'm watching you, like it's reversed. And so it just.
Your brain's like, I can't grab this.
My brain cannot.
Okay, so then we had next week, last week. I almost did next week and last week together, and that just threw me for a minute. Oh, gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Gotcha. I can see that. Okay, then we had next month. I keep wanting to go last first, but we did first, next first. Ooh, that's a lot of that's a lot of complicated words right there trying to say back and forth. Next month. Next month. Next month. And then last month. Last month. Last month. And you want to make sure your non-dominant is facing outward and you're brushing the back of it.
Hey, Jillian, in the chat does it matter if your palm is facing up or down with week or month? Which one? Okay, that's what I thought.
Okay. Then we had next year. So we're going to bounce the fist and go forward. Next year. Next year. And then last year, bouncing back. Next year. Next year. Last year. I've been saying next year, but I meant last year. Sorry. We got back to school, guys, and it wasn't a bad day. It was just crazy because it was off and different. So I think my brain is just like, what? And we didn't have school yesterday. So getting back in that routine is just a little wild sometimes. Last year. Okay. So before we move on to the WH question words, the next thing I was going to say is we're going to do our days of the week. But before that, I did want to explain very briefly months of the year. And the reason for that is because for months of the year, they do not have their own sign. Okay. You shorthand fingerspell them. So for example, January is Jan, February is Feb, March is Mar, short signing, spelling them all. For April, May, June, July. Yeah, there is 4. I couldn't remember how many there were. April, May, June, July, you fingerspell the whole word. So May, June, July, it's just kind of a fast motion. So nice thing about the months is you don't really have to learn a new sign for them. You just know, okay, January, December, blah, 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 blah. Okay. I want to start off nice and be like, hey, you can actually know that you already know the months of the year because you fingerspell them. Now for days of the week, we are going to start with Monday first. I know that's crazy. Typically, I like to always start with a Sunday, but we're going to start with Monday because Monday through Saturday are very similar. Sundays are one different. Okay. So for Monday, what you're going to do is you're going to make an M. You're going to have it face you, and you're going to make a circular motion. Monday. Monday. Then for Tuesday, you're going to make a T, have it face you, and another circular motion. Tuesday. Wednesday is going to be a W, circular motion. Thursday is going to be, it's the H. It's like, I always thought of it being as the H, but it also can be the U because you do have it slightly angled like this and go Thursday. Thursday. And then Friday is going to be an F, Friday. Saturday is the S, Saturday. And then our Sunday. So our Sunday has 2 different ones. The first one is Sunday. Sunday. It's like, I mean, I always think about Karate Kid, like wax on, wax off. I don't know why. It's actually because my ASL teachers taught me that. And I was like, why did you teach me that? That's never what I would have thought of. But apparently that's always been stuck with me. It's like rejoicing, praising kind of deal. Sunday or Sunday. Sunday. Now, most people will ask, so I'm going to go ahead and like kind of explain a little bit. Some people will ask, how do you tell the difference between Monday, Tuesday, Saturday? Because those 3 are very similar hands. Typically, you can catch by the base of how many fingers are pointing up. So like if you notice with Monday, which it is hard through a computer screen, but like when you're talking to someone in person, you can clearly tell that there are 3 fingers up because there's always this little thumb sticking out right here, Monday. Whereas for Tuesday, it's the pointer finger over the thumb and the thumb is sticking out here. You can tell that is the thumb is sticking out from 1 for T. Saturday is that like you on there either can't see the S or it's sticking out behind the knuckles. Saturday. That's kind of my like helpful tidbits on how you can catch it. Typically with more practice and like fingerspelling and not fingerspelling, golly, practice with signing the days of the week, you'll help kind of receptively catch them easier. But yes, because I know they're very similar. People ask all the time, like, how do I figure out? Look for those key clues. 3 fingers up for Monday, 1 finger over the thumb for Tuesday, and then the thumb sticking out and behind on Saturday. Okay, let's go back and do our Monday through Sunday again. And then we'll do some seasons. I'm gonna see how everyone's doing, and then we'll move on. Okay. So we had Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday. Sunday or Sunday. Either one for those two. Okay. So let's now do our seasons. And we just kind of they're very simple. And I'm pulling it up because I always like to make sure I catch all of them. I know there's only 4, but my brain's like, because the little list, I'm like, I want to stay in my right place. So for season, the word season itself, I typically do S and go down season. This also can be semester. So it can be a little bit, I know it's a little confusing with that. Context clues are kind of what helps like you knowing which is they talking about, you know? So, I mean, you can do the fall semester. I'm trying to think of what else I do for seasons. All else fails, finger spelling seasons is not the end of the world. Typically it's kind of caught easier, but I started thinking about semester, fall semester, spring semester, and I'm like, seasons, that kind of motion. It's mainly just that S kind of going down a bit. So I would recommend if you're like, don't want to be that mistake, like a finger spelling seasons or finger spelling semester, if you really want to emphasize you're talking about a specific semester break, that kind of thing. So for our first one, we're going to do, I'm actually going to start with winter. I know it starts with summer there, but I feel like we need to start in the order that we are in right now. So we're going to start with winter. And winter is going to be 2 S's, and you're going to do this. Cold. This is winter. Winter. I love it because I'm like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Literally, especially today where everyone's just sitting there like shivering. Winter. Then we have spring. So spring is going to have your non-dominant, it's kind of in this open C. Your dominant is going to have the fingers together and you're going to put them in like this. And you go spring, spring, spring. And the reason for this is also the sign for grow. So like, you know, in springtime, the plants are growing, flowers are blooming, that sort of thing. Spring, spring. Then we have summer. Summer is going to be your pointer finger across your forehead and you go summer and you bend it back and forth multiple times. You do want to make sure you do it multiple times because there's about 4 different words up here that if you do a slight difference, that little pointer finger, it's going to change the sentence. Like if you guys remember, I don't know if you have seen the color videos, but black. Black is straight across. So black is over here, summer's right here, because is right there, forgot is right here. There's a lot of similar ones. So the summer one is you have the pointer finger and you bounce it a few times. Summer, summer. Then we have fall/autumn. It's the same sign. Some people, and like that's why I'm emphasizing, some people will just add that letter for autumn, but you don't always have to. So for fall, you have your non-dominant in a kind of slightly angle position. Your dominant's going to be in this kind of B. It's not the end of the world if your thumb's not in there. B shape, and you're going to brush your elbow. Fall. Fall. And it is typically lower, but you can't see it when I do it this way. So fall. Fall. And I have seen some people do the A and go autumn. Autumn. But again, like I said, you don't have to. Fall is the typical one. Fall. Okay. Are there any questions? We'll review right before we move on to the next part. But I was going to ask any questions you guys have, anything you need me to repeat. Always like checking. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you repeat back the it was like the months or like not months, but like weeks. That part was confusing. Like I know that would you say next week is like this or
This.
this?
Mhm.
Yeah, so this is easier because I feel like I'm flipping out. But what was so that's next week?
Next week. Yes. So this way that you like is next week. So it's down and out.
And what is next month? Next month is
Down and out again, but doing the month motion. Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
And then sorry.
No, you're good.
Then oh, someone's taking him. So my boyfriend's taking him. What is what was it? This was last year or like what was it? Last year?
Like you bop it and then bring it back last year.
Okay. And then next year was
Bop it, bring it forward.
okay. Okay. All right. I'm good. I will probably need a refresher at some point, but I understand. Thank you.
That's always, like I said, is timelines. Like think timeline. That usually to me that helps is I literally will visualize, pretend like I'm walking on the timeline. And that's how it helps me remember which way I'm going for everything.
And I do think it is kind of confusing because there's nothing about this that makes you think, oh, that's a month. Do you know,
Right.
or this, it's sort of arbitrary. So you do have to kind of
Yeah,
make it stick in there.
Yes, it's the practice, that drilling in your head. This is what this means. Yeah. Also, yes, winter and cold are both the same signs. Yep. I have seen a few times, not often. I don't see it at like where I work most often. I have seen some people do the W for winter, like winter. But that one I've seen very rarely. I just have seen. I always like to just say, just in case you talk to someone and they say winter and you're like, what is that? They could be mean winter. So just FYI. Okay. Let's review our 4 seasons real quick and then we'll move on to the WH question words. Okay. So we had our winter, winter, winter. Our spring, spring, spring. Our summer, 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 summer. And then our fall, 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 fall. Oh, good question. Okay, we're gonna have a fun little tidbit right now. So this is something that is actually a really interesting subject, and I love talking about it. So I will try to stop myself before I go too crazy on it. If you've noticed in English, we like to use words that are the same word but have different meanings. And when that translates into ASL, that yes, exactly. She knows exactly what I'm about to start talking about. So when that translates to ASL, they are not going to be the same sign because the meaning has changed. When you're talking about fall, as in the season fall, that's what this means. The meaning is there. But if you're talking about like you fell over, you would do fall, fall, like you fell down, fall, because that's the change of the meaning. I like to always have this little discussion. My favorite word to use here is the word run. Because if you think about it, we have way too many different meanings for the word run. I'm sorry, but that's just my opinion. There's way too many because you have running, like I am running, I'm going to go run outside where it's running. It's like 2 L's. You have like your dominant hooks over your non-dominant, and then you make the bouncing motion back and forth like this, running. But then there's also like I've got to run, I got to go, where it's run, like I have got to go, I'm leaving. Or you just go. There's also the run, like if you have stockings and stuff, like leggings and things, and you have a run in them, it's like a run. Or if you're running for office, there's like the voting for office. Then there's what else is there? There's another one. Runny nose. You're not going to say I have a runny nose because that means you have a nose that's running away from you. Like they will literally, and I'm telling you, they will not let that slide. They will tease you so hard on that. Okay. So it's like runny nose. trying to think of any other runs. There's so many. I mean, there's literally so many. And it's just like, you have to think about the meaning. No, it's so true. Like literally, I'm telling you, this is one of my favorite ones. Okay, it's one of my favorite.
Also,
runs.
I'm pretty sure every class, Gillian comes up with a new run. Like we really do use run in a lot of different ways.
Well, and we don't ever think about it because we're so exposed to it. Like we know it, we've grown up with it. But when you have to apply that to a different language, it changes everything. And you're just like, what? So, but yes, like when you have the word, you have to think about the meaning of the word that you're wanting to use, especially when you're trying to think of when you think in English first and then translate it to ASL. You have to think of the meaning behind it. Because that's one of those really interesting ones where you would have to kind of change your signing for it, which I know seems crazy because I could be like, okay, well, that's a lot of different signs for the word run, but that would apply to the different words we've used for it. I'm trying to think of what are the words we've like synonyms with run. I'm trying, you know what I mean though, is that you would use them just kind of applying to the meaning. ASL is more like not dependent, but more focusing on the meaning of the words you are using, if that makes sense. Fall. I do love fall. Fall is like, because you can also, the way you can use fall for that is another way that changes. Ooh, I'm not going to go too deep, I promise. If you're talking about a leaf falling, you wouldn't say leaf fall because a leaf does not stand on two legs and then tips over like that. A leaf would fall down. Yeah, yeah. I'm telling you, it's really this is one of my favorite kind of things, like areas to like talk about is how you have to think of the different meaning of it. Like if you're talking about like if you fell from a great height, you fell. You fall, like you fell down. It was not like a short height, but if you just like fall, you fall. Like I just fell down. Fall. And then some people have even done where they slipped and fall, they go, I fell, like really fell down backwards. So there's always these different ways you can kind of like play with it where you kind of can help with that instead of our like our tones that we use or the way we like will say the word like, oh, I fell yesterday. How we say it like that. There's ASL ways of that. So yeah, there's my little rant, my little fun little like tidbit rant for that. I just love that one. So, let's see. Okay, now let's do our WH question words. All right. We only have 5, but we have 5, but I typically add 2 more up to that.
Wait, Gillian.
Yes.
Let's do the shapes. Let's do the shapes and then
Yes. Oh my gosh, thank you for that. Yes, I completely forgot. I told you I have my list, okay? I have it zoomed in ready. I have to keep a list or I will lose track of myself. All right. So for our shapes, we're going to start off with the sign for shape first, okay? And it is 2 A's. You're going to kind of start with your thumbs together and then you do squiggles. Shape, shape, shape. Yeah, shape, perfect. Now, let's start with circle. We're going at an order in my head. So if I start sitting here looking up, that's me trying to remember which order I put ourselves in, okay? For circle, you're going to have your non-dominant and a pointer, both your dominant. You're going to have your dominant touch it and then make a circular motion. Circle, 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 circle. Then we're going to have, I was watching, make sure she was catching up. I didn't want to go too fast and she's trying to write all the shapes down and can't catch up. Our next one is going to be square. Squares, you're going to start together like this. I'm turning so I can see. And you're going to go square. 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 Then we have rectangle. Now there are 2 ways you can do rectangle. I can admit I'm a little bit guilty of using the more English sign for rectangle, only just to clarify for my kids. You can do rectangle where you do it longer. Rectangle. Or even rectangle. Depending on which way you're talking. Is it a long way this way? Is it a long way that way? Whichever way you're talking about, you would change it for that. I sometimes use the R and go rectangle. I can't help it. Especially when we're talking about shapes a lot. and we're doing squares and rectangles, I do the rectangle to help clarify what we're doing. But that is more that English than the typical just full-blown ASL of rectangle. Okay. Then we have triangle. Triangle, again, you have your, if you've noticed, we keep our 2 pointer fingers together a lot of the times we start off. So triangles, we're going to start here. We're going to go down and together. Triangle, triangle, triangle. It's all very much your pointer fingers are making the lines for you. Triangle. For hexagon, pentagon, yes, had to think for a minute. I don't know why. Saying it did not sound right to me. That's why I was like, wait, what am I? Pentagon, yeah. Hexagon, pentagon, heptagon, septagon, all of those, you typically will do either, you'll say like a 6 shape, a 7 shape. You can do this motion, the like for hexagon, like it's across, down. Wait. No, that's a octagon. Sorry, I'm telling you, I had to sit here and think about how I'm drawing this shape in my head. I always do 8 and then I make that motion. For hexagon, you go down, out, and across, making that like shape of a hexagon. And then the octagon going across, diagonal, down, diagonal, cross.
Wait a minute. Go back. Because never in a million years am I going to see somebody doing this with their fingers and catch it. Like, never. Did you say 8 shape, 7 shape is another?
So I was listing them, but I really was like, when you're doing like a hexagon, an octagon.
Are you saying, okay, go. Yeah. Okay.
You would, the way you would typically do it is you would just say like a 6 shape, 6-sided shape, that kind of thing, that generic. But you can do, if you wanted to, you could do a hexagon, but it is very easy to get a little confusing on that, especially when you're starting off. Typically, the more exposed and more practiced, I do see people doing this. But for now, I'm just like, to start basic, I would just say keeping that kind of 6-sided shape, that kind of thing. Because I did say, I know octagon's weird because with octagon, you're making both the lines. You're going across, diagonal, down, diagonal, across. Octagon, yeah. So, oval. Okay, oval is going to be like oval, oval, or oval. You just kind of shorten the motion of it. Oval, oval. And then diamond's kind of the same way. You go diamond, 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 diamond. The more I stare at my hands doing it, the more I'm almost confusing myself because I'm staring at it going, am I still doing this positioning right? And it's because if I stare too long, I start to question it. But diamond, yeah, diamond. Any others? We'll go back through them, I promise. I'm not moving on ahead just after one time of showing you all these crazy shapes. Any others you guys can think of? Remember, the more specific you get, you typically will have to finger spell them. It's the more basic shapes that you don't have to worry too much about. They have their own motion. Okay, let's go ahead and just finish the root. What shape are you talking about? Out of shape. Oh my gosh, that took me way too long. That was good. I'm sorry. My brain was like, what shape is out? What shape is out? Like, that's how I read it in my head, with shape out, not out of shape. That was good. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I love me a dad pun and a joke, and through ASL just gets me every time. Okay. Let's go back and do our review of our shapes. So we had the sign for shape, which is 2 A's and you squiggle. Shape, shape, shape. We had circle, circle, circle. You could do circle, but that does look like, it can look like a heart, I will say. Circle. Then we had square, square. That was just him teasing. He said out of shape. It's like out of shape. Yeah. So out is like you have your hand already inside and you pull it out. Out. So he's saying out shape, out of shape. We had square, then rectangle, rectangle, or rectangle. Then we had triangle. I have to go through my list again. Triangle, triangle. Then we had, what else did we have? That's one thing I started getting confusing with the hexagons and all that. The hexagon or the 6 shape. And then we had the octagon, so the 8 shape. Octagon. It's very choppy. Then we had our oval, so oval or oval. And then our diamond, 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 diamond. Okay, are we good on our shapes? They're pretty, I feel like they're pretty basic. The more you practice, you kind of will see, okay, it's just you drawing out the shape, basically. Okay, now let's go into our WH question words. So, like I said, we have 5 that we have like are just our basic ones, and then we typically have 2 that I kind of add at the end. So the first one we're going to do is the sign for who. Excuse me. Now, if you remember when we were talking about how you would say, what is your name? We talked about our eyebrows. And I said, it's really important when you're asking a question for your eyebrows to either go up or down or up. Any WH question words are going to go down. Okay. Excuse me. Sorry. I have all these hiccups coming. And I promise you, no one's going to think you're mad because your eyebrows are down. So for our who, we're going to have an L. You're going to bring your thumb to your chin and you're going to go who, who, who. What's interesting about this one, who, is that even I've seen people who are profoundly deaf, have been deaf their whole life, have never really heard the sound. When they sign the word who, they will make the ooh sound, or the face, not sound, but the ooh, ooh. Like they'll always do that ooh. So I always like to say that's a part of the sign, is you can't just go, you just go ooh. I just always think that's interesting. I think it's from exposure to seeing other people when they sign it, or when they see like their parents or whoever going who, that it's just kind of applied to the sign who. Then we have what, which I think if you guys remember from What Is Your Name is what. 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 Then we have where. So where is going to be a pointer finger slightly bent. You don't want to have it straight. You want to have it slightly bent. And you go where. Where. Then we have when. When is going to be 2 pointer fingers. Your dominant pointer finger is going to make a circular motion and come back. When. Then we have why. Hold on, sorry, I saw someone typing. I wasn't making sure. So.
Sorry, I don't know how to type that out. Does it matter when you have your fingers like this, do you need to go outwards or do you need to go inwards? Does it matter which way you go?
I don't think it really, this one is a one that would really make a difference. I typically go outwards when, but if you went backwards, I don't think they're going to go, no one's going to look at you and go, I have no idea what you're talking about. There's not really any other signs that would change with that one. I think you would be okay. Okay. For why, there are 3 different ways you can sign why. Okay. So the first one is you're going to start with your fingers kind of all 4 like this. You're going to put it to the side of your head and you're going to pull your hand out into the Y shape. Okay. Why? My pinky likes to stick up. If I do it repeatedly too many times, my pinky gets tired of just bending down and up. So it just stays up and I'm trying to keep it down. Why? The other option is you have your middle finger and you do the same thing. Why? Then the third option is you just bounce that middle finger. Why? I love this one. It's very simple. It's very short, very direct. It's not too much of this motion. I like to do this if I'm repeatedly asking someone why, like they just won't give me the answer. I'm like, why? That's kind of where I like to use this one. I do kind of interchange them, just kind of depending. I go from Y to Y. I don't do Y as much, not because I don't see it. It's just I'm used to doing this one more often, Y. But the fun fact is the reason why this one does this and pull into the Y is because this right here, tapping on the side of your head, is no, like I know. So it's like you're asking no, why? Like, how do you know this? That's always how I think about it. It's like when, we're asking the question why, it's like, why do you think that? What's the noggin thinking? So why? Why? Okay, let's go back through those 5 and then I'll add those last 2 at the end. Okay. So we had who, who, and I will clarify with this one, you can just bend your pointer finger like this, who, or go straight down, who. Either way works on that one, who. Then we had what, 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 where, whoops, where, when, when, and then our why, why, and then why. I love that there's such a diverse way of signing certain words sometimes. And that's what I always like to expose this. I'm like, I honestly sometimes like to just say, just pick one and keep one for knowing. And then that way, if you see the other ones later, you can pick it up on it, but don't have to try to drill yourself to knowing the 7 different ways of this. Don't worry about that. Just kind of pick one and kind of start there. Okay. So the next 2 I like to do are how and which. Okay. So for how is going to be, you're going to have your 2 fists together like this, and you go how. How. I don't recall, did we do how are you when we were starting off in the beginning? I don't think we did. I didn't think so. I thought it typically goes in here, but I wanted to check and make sure. So how are you is one of those few sentences where the question word is in front of the sentence, okay? So typically for how are you is you would go how you. How are you? How are you? How you? How you? How you? It's almost like one smooth motion. How are you? How are you? It's not like how you. No, it all goes together. How are you? Very smooth. I love it when it does that. So, how are you? If you were going to be asking like that works how? Some people will they'll bounce like I'll be like if I'm saying that's working like how? I'll bounce it. You see, I'm kind of like not just doing it one time. I'm like how? Either way, how, either way kind of works. I just always like to say there's a slight difference there. How much or how many is going to be, like if I was going to say how much, I have like 2 fists and I throw them up. How much? That can go for how much or how many. So typically the way you would differentiate it, if you're talking about like money, like how much money is that, you would do money. So it's like a pinched 4 on top of your hand. Like pretend like you're holding a wad of cash and you tap it. That's money. So money, how much? Money, how much? If you're talking about how many, you would sign the word of what you need, which I know you don't know a lot of extra words like nouns like that, like apples and fruit. We will get to that later. But if I was asking how many apples or how much apples, apples, how much, I would go apples, how many? Apples, how much? How many? Yeah, sorry, the English is throwing me there because we typically say how many apples, not how much. Apples, you would do that sign for throwing, and that's usually when you would get a quantity. Okay, let's now do a few simple questions. And I know some of them are fun and are going to be interesting because we don't know those words yet, and I'm going to show you. Like our first one is, where is the bathroom? So the sign for bathroom, there. I even thought about that. I thought, Wow, this is a total math question. That's like what everyone says, little Johnny has 22 apples. He gave away 3. How many does he have now? Yeah, I know. Oh no, thank you. Thank you. I completely forgot about which. Thank you. I knew I was getting too stuck on the apples. Okay. The apples got me for a minute and I completely lost which. Okay. So for which, the way you would do it is you're gonna have 2 thumbs and you go back and forth. Which. Now, typically, I always like to recommend to help with clarifying what you're talking about is if you were talking about, let's do apples and oranges, okay? We're going to keep on the apple train. We're going to stay here. I would do apples, orange, which. And that's kind of my way of turning it, apples, oranges, which. You can do the 2 fingers sideways like this. And this is listing. So if you've noticed, whenever I was talking about like the Y, I had 3 fingers up like this. When you have the numbers sideways like this, that is helping with listing out what you're talking about. So for this, if you wanted to do which, you could do apples, oranges, which. So you would kind of dot it out. That is also a way you can do if you're talking about 3 different things. Like, do you want cookies? Do you want ice cream? Do you want cake? Which. You would do like the 3, which. Okay. Okay, thank you for that. I would have moved on ahead without our which. Perfect. Okay, now back to the question, wait, girl, I'm trying to, I'm staring at that going, what about which? What do you mean? So like, how did I word that? Now I'm trying to catch on how I worded it. What about which? So I don't know. My brain is not catching this sentence, guys. Am I just misunderstanding? It's what about which? Okay. I don't know what's happening here. My brain is not. Yes. Okay. I see what you mean now. Okay. So if you were like, if you're asking someone, what about which? Sorry, it threw me off when Amber left because I was like, who left? Did someone leave that was asking the question? No, she's here. She'll come back. So like if you're talking about what about like, sorry, my brain, maybe I'm not understanding the question, like how you would do both question words. Like, are you saying like both? Like if you wanted both? I don't know why I'm struggling.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand either.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. Okay, she was just saying it was just the way the reminder was asked, that's all. Okay, sorry. I was standing here going, am I not understanding how like this question is? Am I completely like never signed this or seen this before? Okay, got it. I told you guys, teacher brain can be a little bit sometimes. Okay, so yeah, like when you're asking what about what about that word? Like if you're saying like what about this? Typically, how would I say that? I'm trying to be like if you're asking like the word like what about, I guess when you really are talking about what about, you don't really say what about which. Like if you're talking about that word, you'd be like, you would kind of like motion and point to the word, like kind of make the sign like, like I was saying, what about apples? Like the kids picking like once oranges, it says they can't decide between oranges or bananas. And I'm like, what about apples? I'd be like, apples, what about that? Like apples, that kind of thing. I wouldn't do what about like we typically do in English, if that makes sense. I know that's not what the question's adding, but that was what I was thinking. And I'm stuck on that train. I gotta explain that. So that's how I would do is you don't really do what about, like, what about little Johnny? Don't forget him. You would just be like, him, like, what are you gonna do with him? That sort of thing. Not a big deal. We will. Oh, it looks like it's time for one. Okay, so yes, it does. And about and when. So about when. The difference is your eyebrows. This is where that eyebrows come in. Because if you said about 5, that would be saying when, 5. Like that, the eyebrows down would say when, not about. If you're saying it's about to focus on, we're about to focus on this, your eyebrows are going to stay neutral, if that makes sense. So when, about. And that's typically like kind of the focus. If you're trying to say like about, it's like about $5, $20, whatever you're saying, that sort of thing. I know we're spiraling on these different paths, and I'm trying to keep us on this because I know these are words and signs that y'all have not seen yet. And I'm sure you're going, this girl's throwing like 20 different signs and 20 different words at us, and I'm missing it all. Don't worry, I promise. We'll come back to that. But yes, that's the sign. About and when are the same sign. It's just your eyebrows and where you place it in your sentence that will change. Okay. Okay. So the few question words we have, where is the bathroom? How you would ask that is you're going to sign the word for bathroom and then go where. Now the sign for bathroom is going to be a T, and you go back and forth. Bathroom. So we go bathroom, where? Bathroom, where? Bathroom, where? Now, there is another sign for bathroom. I'm just going to throw it out there because I think it's always funny when I learn this. There's a sign for restroom that can be used obviously for bathroom, and it is an R, and you go R, restroom. And the reason I like to bring this up is because with that, sometimes my ASL teacher in college, I remember she had this whole big with us about how it is not proper to use the sign for bathroom because this really is not the sign for bathroom, it's the sign for toilet. And you were asking people where the toilet is. And she was like, we're going to say restroom because that's more proper. And I was like, okay. And I was like, fine, I will learn restroom. Restroom where? Like, restroom where? And then I came to school and everyone said toilet. So it's always one of my favorite things to talk about because I don't know, my brain's like, this is bathroom. I don't see this big hoopla about people being like, I can't believe you're saying the word for toilet. No, bathroom. Bathroom where? So nice and simple. All right. We're gonna do, because I know we're about to run out of time, I'm gonna kind of shorten it. I'm gonna pick more of the few ones. So who are you? What you would do is this one you can do who are you, but typically you go you who, you who, you who, you who. Then we have what are you doing? Now, what are you doing is going to have a completely different sign than the word what. Okay. It's not the way you do it is you're going to do the sign for what do. That's the like English of it is what do. And you're going to have like 2 little pinches and you just go, what do. And this is literally, what are you doing? That's it. What do. So you have your eyebrows down with that. What do. You can do what are you doing? But you're just saying what are you doing? But like, so typically it's just what do. What are you doing? Sometimes when people will go one hand, like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So you can do it 2 hands or 1 hand. Okay. And then I think, oh no, we've done the other one. Sorry. I saw more afterwards. I didn't look at specifically what they were. So I was like, oh, let's shorten this, but no, we're good. When is the meeting? So the way you do is you do the sign for meeting, which is meeting. Sorry, I always have to like stare at myself because I will change my fingers. It's like meeting. And you want to have them together because it's like a conference meeting. My pinky went down. Sorry. Meeting. Hand puppets come together. Meeting. Meeting. When. Meeting. When. Meeting. When. So, like I said, the nice thing is that the is, the, are, all of those words are embedded in the signs that you are already signing. You do not have to repeat and sign those words as well. I think it's very nice that way. Simplifies it a little bit for signing it. Okay. So let's go back through our question words real quick, just a little bit. And then I'm going to leave it open for any questions you guys have. Okay. Because I know we have like 3 minutes. So we had, where is the bathroom? So bathroom, where? Bathroom, where? And I had added restroom, where? Then we had who are you? So you, who, you, who. I always laugh at myself when I say that out loud because it sounds like you-hoo, like you, who. Then we had what are you doing? So what do, what do, what do, what do. Then we had when is the meeting? Meeting, when. Meeting, when. And that one you can also do where is the meeting? Meeting, where? Meeting, where? If you were trying to ask when, where, like when you're asking multiple questions, what you would do is you go meeting, when, where. Like you would add them both together, that sort of thing. Typically, you don't do that often. We always ask usually one word, but those times like when you're talking about meetings, because like we're getting in our meeting season and I'm always like meetings, when is it? Where is it? Like that kind of thing. So when, where. Okay. Any final questions you guys have? I know we kind of veered off at one point. So, any questions, any repeats you need? Anything of that? Good. Okay. Perfect. So, next week we're going to do family signs, okay? That'll be nice because there's not too many. There's like a set amount already as there is. And then what I'll do is I'll teach you guys how you would list your family members and how you would describe your family. And then what is after that? That's going to be
Usually we'll do occupations with it since it's like
people.
a people thing.
Our whole subject next week is going to be about people, basically. And so that's the theme we're going for. I love how I said subject. I meant theme is going to be people next week. So, okay. Well, like we've said, is if you guys have any questions you guys think of that during this week, you're more than welcome to send them to Miss Katie and she will save them for our next week's class. Trying to think again, if you are not able to come to our meetings, like you're not able to come at this time, do not stress. We record every class, so you guys can catch up on that. That's totally fine. Anything else you can think of? I think I threw myself off with the whole list. I don't know what's going on.
No, I think that's it. But if you look, we covered everything. Yeah.
We did.
So, I mean, I think it's great. And we did new stuff.
Yes, the shapes. Always
So
fun.
yeah. I can't think of anything else, but yeah, I was thrilled to do shapes. So if anybody else has anything else that they think, gee, I'd love to know a little bit more about this, let us know.
Definitely.
And I'll upload this and send you your links. And I think that's it.
All right. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of y'all's week, and I will see you guys all next Tuesday. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody.